Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. As you all know, early this morning, the Hartford Police Department issued a press release with preliminary details on an officer-involved shooting that occurred last night. We have since learned that this morning the individual who was shot passed away this morning. Any loss of life in our community is a tragedy for our community, and our hearts are with the family of the individual who died. I also want to say how deeply grateful I am and how lucky we are that no other civilians and that no police officers were injured in this incident. I have seen some of the body camera footage, and it is clear that this is a very dangerous and volatile situation. I will turn this over in a moment to Chief Thody to walk through the information about the incident to the extent that we can share it at this time. We obviously have to be sensitive to the fact that there is an ongoing independent investigation that will be conducted by the State's Attorney's Office. This investigation has been assigned to State's Attorney Kelly out of Milford. I have spoken with Attorney Kelly this morning, and I have urged her and asked her to release all information, including all body camera footage, as quickly as possible. She has assured me that she and her team will be working to do that, and that it is her goal to release that footage well in advance of the 72-hour deadline, perhaps as early as tomorrow. In the meantime, she has authorized the release of pictures of the weapons that the individual was in possession of during this incident, which include an assault rifle with a scope as well as a handgun. So those pictures, I believe, will be released by the state police this afternoon. But again, I urged and asked State's Attorney Kelly to release as much information as possible, as quickly as possible. We are, of course, sensitive to the investigation, but we also think it's critical that our community get as much information about this incident in as much detail as quickly as possible. I want to say again, having reviewed the body camera footage, this is a situation where it appears to me that our officers' lives were very much in danger, and this is a difficult situation for anyone to be involved with, and so I also just want to say that our thoughts, my thoughts, are with the officer who was involved in this, all of the officers, including the officer who was involved in this incident last night. With that, I think I will turn this over to Chief Thody, and I may come back for a few more comments and thoughts at the end. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So first and foremost, as the mayor said, the officer-involved shooting occurred last night. As with protocol and with state statute, we secured the scene, locked everything down, and awaited the arrival of the state's attorney's office and the state police. State's Attorney Kelly from Milford arrived on the scene last night, along with the Eastern District Major Crimes squad from the state police, and we turned everything over to them. What we do know from I was on the scene as well, and from the body-worn camera footage, is that we received a call, a 911 call, regarding an individual in the area of 25 Gilman Street on the street that was in possession of a firearm and acting erratically. The officers responded and they located that individual. That individual was in possession of an assault rifle with a scope on it, as well as a handgun. Officers spent the next several minutes trying to get the individual to put the guns down. At that point, the individual was kind of walking around in the street and through the neighborhoods and in the backyards. This is a very residential area. Officers, again, were pleading with the individual to put the gun down. The individual ended up going into a parking lot area at 14-16 Gilman Street, and ended up going behind a dumpster in the back corner of the parking lot where he was still in possession of the two firearms. Officers, again, this is an apartment complex, a densely populated apartment complex. Officers continued to plead with the individual to put the gun down so no one would get hurt. Two different officers were heard on the body-worn cameras indicating that he was pointing the firearm, that he had started to point the assault rifle at the officers, and at that point one shot was discharged. The individual, medical aid was given to the individual right away, and he was transported to Hartford Hospital. The officer that fired the shot is Officer Ashley Martinez. She's a 4-year veteran of the police department. And there were no, in this situation, there were no injuries reported by police officers. I think that's about what we can give. Like I said, the investigation is ongoing with the Connecticut State Police and with the State's Attorney's Office, and I'm sure that they will have more to share, hopefully in the very near future.
Thank you, Chief. The one other thing I just want to stress is that Officer Martinez did have a body-worn camera. That camera was on. There are multiple other body-worn cameras that were turned on during the incident. So there are, the State's Attorney will be reviewing the footage from a number of body-worn cameras. And again, we've urged that all of that footage be released as quickly as possible. Of course, we would like any of that footage to be released as quickly as possible. We're happy to take any questions.
I have a question for Chief.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
In terms of just the times that we're in right now and building confidence between the community and the police department again, and making that confidence stronger, how important is it for you to have, and how important is it to have, the Eastern Division coming in and investigating this rather than the division right here in our area?
I think it's very important. I mean, having someone come in that doesn't have any relations here, doing an independent investigation. I think the more independent an investigation like this can be, the better. Having the Milford State's Attorney's Office come up, which also doesn't have a lot of interaction with the Eastern District Major Crimes, is another level of independence as well. We met with everyone last night, and I'm confident that a thorough independent investigation will be done here.
Do you know how many officers were on the scene?
I don't have the exact number. There were several body-worn camera there was a lot of body-worn camera footage that we had to go through, and we turned all of that over to the State's Attorney's Office. And all of the reports from that incident, obviously there's a lot of moving parts with an investigation like this. All of those reports were due in this morning, so I don't have an exact count now.
When you say he was acting erratic, could you be specific what that meant?
So that came from the 911 caller. That wasn't something that that the officer said. That was what was reported to the officers from the 911 caller, is that he was in possession of a firearm and that he was acting erratically or in an unorthodox way. The exact verbiage will come out. We have the recording of that 911 video. We turned it over to the state police as well. In the body-worn camera video, he can be seen intermittently, like almost marching and running throughout that residential area. He stayed in a small area, but with an assault rifle in his hands, I would say that that's not something that we normally see.
When will his ID be released, do you know?
That'll be up to the State's Attorney and the state police.
Do we know if he lived in the area, or is there a reason why he was there, or we really don't know?
Don't know yet. Again, that'll be up to the state police. We try to turn everything over to them to do interviews and find things like that out. They do the neighborhood canvas. They do everything.
Mayor, could you also speak to, the confidence in the community, having all this information come out as fast as possible so
Sure.
people, have the ability to see what happened?
Sure. I think two things are critical here. The first is that the investigation be independent, that it be thorough, and I'm confident that the State's Attorney Kelly and her team, along with the state police, will conduct a thorough and independent investigation. But it's also critical that as much information as possible be released to our community as quickly as possible. That is why I urged Attorney Kelly to make the body-worn camera video publicly available as soon as possible. And again, hopefully well in advance of the 72-hour deadline, and my hope is that it may be as early as tomorrow. Any information that we can get out, we want to get out. We have an obligation to respect the investigation, and we have to seek authorization. We can't just independently release footage that is the subject of the investigation, but we can urge and encourage that as much of that information as possible be released as quickly as possible. We think our community needs to see that, deserves to see that, and we'll do everything we can to facilitate that.
Ashley Martinez spelled conventional?
Yes.
A-S-H-L-E-Y?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody.